This is Eric Andrews, CWF World Wide television champion. You're listening to the official, unofficial CWF World Wide After Show.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Oh, we didn't
I keep doing the Brown Studs, oh, God thing.
For going on 2 years now. The guys here on the network make fun of me for it, no less.
Trevor Lee!
There you go. The host, ring announcer, sometimes brilliant commentator, the lovely CL Party. CL, how are you doing tonight?
I am great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
The technical director of CWF Mid-Atlantic, the one and only Grant Sawyer. Thank you for joining us, Grant. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me back, buddy. I'm happy to fill in because, I'm just sitting around listening to you guys anyway.
I could be in that building at Absolute Justice and cut a fart.
Mm-hmm.
6 years later, they're going to be like, whatever happened to that badass Joe White sitting in the third row cutting farts?
Right.
Everything fucking means something in this place, and I love
That's what
it.
you want, White.
You're supposed to remember shit.
Mm-hmm. They don't insult your intelligence.
Damn right they don't. None other than the one, the only, Sis. Sis, how are you doing tonight?
I'm fantastic.
Is Johhny P, John Philapavage, is going to be joining us. How are things going?
Oh, good. I got a break from editing because you're calling me.
Okay.
So
I have to
I
ask.
still have to do everything. It's just that I get to pace myself better.
I have to ask because you mentioned it.
Yeah.
What are you editing? Again, that music can only mean one thing. We are joined by the current, reigning, defending, rising Generation League champion of CWF Mid-Atlantic, and that is Mr. Kane Justice. What's up, Kane?
What's up, guys? And by the way, it is the record setting. I've defended the belt 8 times.
There you go.
More than anyone else in history. All about Kane now, man.
Bruce Mitchell is joining me right now on the line. How are you, Bruce?
This week I have done shows with Wade Keller, J.J. Dillon, and WWE Hall of Famer, another WWE Hall of Famer, Stan Hansen, Gerald Briscoe, WWE Hall of Famer, Jim Ross. And now the highlight of the entire run, it's built to this, been like a great wrestling program. I've been climbing that ladder, and now I'm here on the blow-off show, the blow-off match. You're it, man. You transcend all those guys.
I was going to go the opposite of that and say, look how the mighty have fallen.
No. You know, I had to build my way to this show, the CWF.
I appreciate
Unofficial,
it, sir.
official.
I'm with Trevor on this one.
Oh, come on.
I'm with Trevor on this one.
Come on.
You got Cecil on the air going, oh, maybe it won't be one of these guys that's here. Maybe it'll be a new guy to dethrone him. Well, how about this, Cecil? Nobody's going to dethrone him. How about that? That's right, Trev.
I love this show.
This is CL Party welcoming you to the unofficial CWF World Wide After Party with Joe White.
And good evening, everybody. We are live right here on your internet radio, as always, with the official, unofficial CWF Mid-Atlantic After Show. And joining me live this week, I was going to say we needed to cut a soundbite before the show, but then I realized you're already part of the intro. It's Mr. Johhny P himself, John Philapavage. How are you doing, John?
Doing pretty good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Awesome. Then we're very good.
A little bit of background noise, but it goes with the territory here on this show, it seems like. So it's okay.
Oh yeah, I got a fan going to the outside, and we have this dehumidifier over here that it runs in the background in the studio that I work out of, and I'm just so used to it because it's been years, and I don't notice until I have to cut the intros for the CWF Road Diaries podcast I've been doing.
Yeah, and
that's something I have to figure out like when it goes off.
It sounds like it's raining in the background. That's what it sounds like.
It is raining here.
It is raining, okay.
Although that's probably the fan, but weather's horrible here.
Yeah, it's been horrible here. And speaking of weather, our thoughts are with people who are in Houston as well as in Florida. A couple housekeeping notes here before we get going here, John. Last week, I got to admit something, and I put it out on Twitter Thursday morning. This has nothing to do with Johhny P, by the way. This is about last week's show. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to listen to it, but we did the Cecil Scott interview. It went well. And after the Cecil Scott interview, I don't know, I had a friend of mine, Robert Wells, who's a good friend of the Pillar to Post. He said he couldn't tell. But I have to give a big, huge apology to my listeners here because I had a bit of a I guess you would call it a diabetes meltdown. I had a bit of a Wilford Brimley going on last week. It's embarrassing as hell, but now I'm laughing about it because I forgot to take a pill that I've been prescribed to take halfway through the day that day last week. So by the time I got to 10:30 at night, we did the Cecil interview, everything was good, and it was like I was starting to go through the episode last week, episode 120, which was a really good episode, and I don't remember doing parts of the show last week after the interview. I was blacking out at parts and rambling incoherently. My girlfriend, when I got upstairs, looked at me and said, "You forgot to take your pill, didn't you?" She knew right away what was going on. I took the pill today, folks, so I do apologize for those of you who heard that last week. I will try not to let that happen again. I guess I'm an old man now who, like Bruce Pritchard, has to set an alarm to remind me to take my pill now, I guess. Anyway, Johhny P is with us tonight. John, I made sure I wanted to make sure John watched the episode. He said he did his homework for tonight's episode of the after show, so thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
First and foremost, I want to ask you about something before we get to the episode. I want to ask you a couple things here, because we always like to interview people before our guests before we do this. I got to ask you about FanCon. You were on our pre-show for Absolute Justice before it aired on the YouTube channel. We mentioned it then, or you mentioned it then, how much of a good idea it was. And then about a month or two later, FanCon is announced. So can you tell us a little bit about you and JB's coercion on this and your relationship with CWF, kind of how this all came to be?
Sure. So I actually met JB in person for the first time I think the first time we met was at Battlecade. We just decided to share a room. And we watched the show together and hung out and had a really great time. And went to breakfast the next morning. I think some of this might have come up in the first time you interviewed me.
Yeah.
Back in January. But JB was there. And I don't know if I think I might have, I don't even think I threw out the idea during the breakfast. I do remember JB appearing with me on another podcast for our friend Timothy on the Place to Be Nation, the family of podcasts that they have. And I just threw it out there. I had talked to JB about this in passing, and he thought it was a really cool idea. And I sort of elected him live on the recording to help me with it. And he just kind of went, yeah. And I immediately apologized to him after we went off the air. I was like, I don't know why I did that. Like, I'm really sorry. I was just trying to be inclusive, but, like, you don't have to do that. It was, no, I really want to. So I was like, okay, well, he kind of let me run with the ideas, and we would talk about it, and he would say, hey, what do you think of something like this? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, and how about this? And I pitched it to Brad about 800 times, and he liked it every time, but Stutzy, I should say. But he would forget about it, because he has a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
So, during downtime when I was around him, or, 3 a.m, we'd be DMing, and, he'd always be like, oh, that's cool, and what were you thinking about this? And I'd kind of, go off on my whole tangent, and he's like, oh, yeah, cool. And it got to be, Absolute Justice time, and we sat in a McDonald's in, Indiana after being up all night, and had a huge talk about it. And I thought it was pretty firm then, but, I guess it wasn't because there was too much stuff going on. So while I was talking about it on your thing and everywhere else, I was trying to will it into existence, because ultimately Brad can't make the final decision on that. And we didn't have the okay until Brad walked over to me after doing commentary at SCI down in Chattanooga after the first night, which was early August, and said, they gave us the okay, you can announce. Because I had said to him on that Wednesday when I stayed with them for a day when I was coming through, and I basically said, I don't think we can do it if we don't get an okay by this weekend.
Yeah.
Because we haven't started doing anything because we don't think it's going to happen.
Right. What's the point?
So right. So we had all these ideas, but unfortunately you can't really start if nothing exists to start with. so when we got the okay, that was early August, and that's why this one, it's fine though. The main thing that I want to come out of this saying is that, like, this is a prequel for us. This is our kind of this community event that we want to be very chill. Our model is not like the Mid-Atlantic convention that they would have every year with Greg Price and all that, which I've heard is awesome. And there's a lot of other different ones. The model idea, I came from like the ECW world, and they did CyberSlam, which grew every year. But the first year was just an internet convention, and it was really chill. And they actually coincidentally had it in the ECW arena. And JB came from the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Fan Weekend convention.
Right.
Well, I guess they didn't even call it convention, but Fan Weekend in the 90s, where he had gone to one or two of those. And we were very affected by our experience at SCI, which was really laid back and had a lot of events for free with the idea of like, hey, you're staying at this place. Everybody get together and hang out and share your love for a certain thing. But there's no stress. Like, you have to do anything. You know, if you just want to come into town and go to the show, you can. But if you want to participate, there's only like one or two things we're doing that cost money. You know, like the opening night dinner is one thing, and like there might not even be a second thing that I can think of. I mean, bring your money because Saturday, you know, you're going to get hungry while you're there probably, or you might want to buy some merch because there's definitely going to be people there with merch.
Right. The only other thing that I think you have to pay money for is to go to the Rumble itself, or if you're going to go to Hooters with us afterwards, you got to bring money to eat. So.
Right, but that's just the same as if you were. I mean, you're right, but it's like, well, if you're going to go to the show, if you're going to the show regardless, you're going to have to pay for a ticket. We're just not handling ticketing.
Yeah.
We don't have like a massive package deal because you don't have to pay for a bunch of stuff. We're offering hotel rooms if you want to come in at a discounted rate from what they usually would be, but you don't have to stay with us. You know, the only thing we really deeply need a head count for is the food for the first night dinner, so we have enough and those people can get their money. Oh, and I should announce, I know when I was in your chat room a couple weeks ago, I think it was Wrestling God was very much wanted to know this venue, and I don't have it up, so if he's in your chat room, I should look.
He's in there.
Well, Wrestling God, you'll be happy to know that you were correct. I was pretty sure you were correct, but I didn't want to say an incorrect thing to somebody and then have them think I was just lying to them. What's the place called? Taste of Italy?
Taste of Italy, Little Italy, something like that, I think it was.
Right, is going to be providing the catering for us, and we're very happy to have them.
I'm surprised it wasn't Mimi's Pizza, because that's where CWF gets their pizza from, and they're full on, you know, I don't know if they're just a pizza place or whatever, but somebody mentioned chicken parmesan, and I told my girlfriend the next day after, I think it was last week or the week before, I think you're talking, I was like, if they got chicken parmesan there, man, I'm so down for this. But
yeah, I don't even the what they are bringing hasn't been decided.
The menu has not been arranged. So,
what's that?
The menu has not been arranged yet, folks.
Yeah, well, it's up to like what they offer, because I don't want to just be like, yeah, they're gonna have that, and then like they're like, yeah, that's not part of what we do for catering. So.
Yeah, well, I'll be there, because I looked at my girlfriend. My girlfriend's like, why are you going to go to the dinner and pay? I was like, because if I'm doing Radio Row, it's not that I feel obligated, but if I'm doing the Radio Row bit, I want to be able to participate in everything else. And I was like, you don't get the social structure of this, because my girlfriend, she'll watch wrestling with me. She goes to the shows with me, but she could take it or leave it. She's not a huge wrestling fan. She likes going and oogling all over Trevor Lee. That's about it. So, and she's not the only one. But I'm like, this is how it is. She goes, but it's not like you're part of the business. I'm like, no, I'm not part of the business. But if I show up for one thing and don't do everything else, it you know, I have to. I was like, I'm going to do all of it. So I've been given the girlfriend's blessing to just go all out and do it. Was kind of concerned about the Hooters thing. She's like, go to Hooters, have fun. You have my blessing on that. So I'll be doing it all that weekend, and I'm happy to be doing it all. I'm happy for the invite from you guys to be able to be a part of the Radio Row or Podcast Alley, whatever you guys are calling it. I'm very happy to be doing it.
We're cribbing the concept from Radio Row. from different, the Grammys had a radio row.
WrestleMania has one.
Right. I know. Well, the famous one is the NFL's Media Day. But, yeah, we're just calling ours Podcast Alley because that's who would be podcast.
Let me ask you about this. By the way, I have a crawl going on the bottom of the screen. It's the same one I had up last week about come join the fun, and I have yours and JB's Twitter handles on there. If you plan on coming to this, please give JB and John a head count. My question is, why Rumble Weekend? Why not do this over Battlecade Weekend? Because Battlecade is like CWF's quote-unquote WrestleMania. So why not do it that weekend? Because it's the first year. The idea that I pitched is that I didn't want to be intrusive, and there was actually a lot of back and forth within me. And then, because I'm one of those people, if I'm going to pitch something, I want to give you all the different options and the different thinking. Yeah. So I had originally kind of pitched it as an informal thing, like not even to the company. I just put it out online in like April, like, hey, how about we all get together? And, because it was right off of like Cornado Cup weekend and then Mania. And I said, hey, who wants to go to Absolute Justice? That's the next time I'm going to be down. Like, let's all get together. But I was pitching something a little more like, what's the word, substantive or substantive? I can't even say it. Some more substantial, more organized, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people were like, I love the idea. I don't think the turnaround's too quick was basically the consensus. Is it like, because there are people from out of town who are like, I don't know how I would get a plane ticket if it wouldn't cost too much and blah, 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 blah. So we pushed that back. And when I pitched it to Brad, once it got to be a bigger idea, my thing was, I'd like to do it on an off-brand show that we could kind of like see if that could just be like the convention weekend. But the thing is, then it just becomes a big show. The pressure would be on them to make it worthwhile for people.
Right. If you're going to have that many people coming in, you got to have a show to match the, not that they've never had a bad show, but I get what you're saying.
And the other thing is, and I don't want to listen, when I say this, I'm not lowering expectations for what we're going to do, because we're going to have a lot of fun, and we already have a lot announced and a lot planned. But I did want to lower expectations for them in the sense that, like, I don't, like, Stutzy had said, like, well, maybe we could do this or that on Friday night. And I said, it's just the first year. Again, it's like, let's keep it simple the first year and see if it sticks and how it does. I think we're already past the point of it being a success in terms of, like, people interest. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's a very low bar for that first year. You want to feel it out. Look, if I'm going to fall on my face, I'd rather there be, like, 25 people there and not 300 people.
Yeah, and what kills me is with fans – You got to be thinking there's one thing to have somebody go, yeah, we have interest in it, and it's another thing to have that same person actually show up. So
right. And the first year is like, I'm sure it'll be a wait and see, and we'll have a lot of stuff coming out of this so that people get a chance, if they didn't come, to hopefully feel bad about not coming. And by that I just mean go like, oh man, because that's what I did last year with SCI. All my friends were there tweeting pictures and video and all this different stuff, and I was like, man, I should have been there. Mm-hmm. So this year, I hopped in my car, met JB in Charlotte, and then we drove down with our friend Kim and went to SCI. So my whole thing this year is like, let's not go crazy. And that's what I told Stutzy. We did it on the Rumble weekend just because it was a big show, but it wasn't Battlecade. I don't want to intrude too much because they're doing us huge favor. Like, this is Grant's baby.
Yeah.
And Grant takes a lot of time to put this together. And I don't mean that he's slow. I mean, it's a lot to be a Pat Patterson,
Right.
to put together.
Absolutely.
And this is a storyline set. So it's going to be intricate. And then Tim and Steph, you have to go back and forth. That's why they're going to be there Friday night and give us their time then. But Saturday, they're kind of off doing their thing. I mean, if they show up, that's cool. But I told them, don't feel any pressure on Saturday. There's more than enough stuff. Everybody's going to get a chance to hang out and talk to them for, over 2 hours on Friday night. Possibly more, So I didn't want to overtax them. And, like, if it works out and the company embraces it and they're happy with it, then we can go and have a meeting and talk about maybe having a dedicated weekend for it.
Right.
And if not, then we can just attach it to a show. And I don't think option 3 is going to happen, which is like, oh, we all just go to hell with it. I think I think JB's pretty committed, and I'm pretty committed to it, and the company really likes what we've all kind of agreed to at this point. It's all working really well, so I'm pretty sure there'll be another one after this one. But you should come to this one just to make sure.
And the fact
Because
that
if everybody assumes, then it won't happen.
the fact that the company, you know, Stutzy, Grant, Cross, the fact that everybody in that company is willing to work with you on this is mind-blowing to me, because most indie feds would be like, screw you, we're not breaking that fourth wall down. But CWF is sounds like they're kind of welcoming us with open arms within reason, of course. So I'm glad that it's happening. Another thing I want to ask you about here, shifting gears a little, this CWF Road Diaries thing, man, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
I'm loving this. I kind of felt like I stepped on your toes a little bit by having we pretty much both had Cecil Scott interviews 24 hours within each other, but they're different interviews. So I encourage people to go back and.
I thought that was so neat. No, I was laughing too when I heard some of Cecil's origin stories, because I was like, oh yeah, I asked him a different question, but it became something similar somehow. I think. But yeah, no, it was like literally like that dropped at 10. And the word was just getting out when he appeared on your show at 10:30. By the way, congratulations on your scoop. I did not know that Cecil was completely confirmed. He announced it on your show.
Thank you.
I knew he was a maybe if the scheduling worked out, because I'm pretty decent friends with Cecil.
I'll still say card subject to change. You never know. But
yeah, well, you don't. Well, that's the thing too. They're wrestlers, and like your comment before, like we've gotten an amazing amount of buy-in, because. Like, I came from doing years of the CCW documentary, and, like, it was like pulling teeth with people, and that company had already folded by the time I got to most people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've been turned down by anybody. I've had a lot of cool conversations with people that I only vaguely knew from CWF since this was announced, you know, and I finally got to them, and they're like, or you get people who reach out. I don't want to say the guy's name, but he like reached out to me, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't get to you yet. I'm so sorry. He's like, yeah, I want to do the whole weekend. And I'm like, well, I was just going to ask you to do like this hour here. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to come and hang out. And I was like, that's so cool.
The Road Diaries thing though, man, it reminds me, I know I'm going to sound like an old man when I say this, but me and you agree on it. Me and you both like NPR. I'm a huge NPR mark. I annoy the crap. My girlfriend calls me her grumpy old man at times because of shit like this. I will annoy the hell out of her and my kids in the car, because I will literally be driving down to CWF, and you get no cell signal while you're down there, so I can't like really flip on anything. But we got satellite radio, and I'll push the PWR channel, and or NPR channel, and I'll listen to NPR. I'll listen to like This American Life or something like that going down the road, and it annoys the crap out of them, because it's two teenagers and they want to hear their hip hop or whatever. But this Road Diary series, the way you've cut this, the way it's edited, to where you hear a little bit of an interview and then you'll hear music, and the style of music is just like one of those weekend shows on NPR. I was getting goosebumps listening to this. I'm like, this does not belong just on a podcast. This belongs on actual radio somewhere, because it's cut together so good. What was your choice? Why make this choice to do it in this style? And, you know, just talk about how this whole thing came to be.
I am such a podcast geek. so and like you said, like I don't listen to as much radio anymore, although I do check out NPR. It's one of the few ones I do, but because mostly I just listen to all their podcasts.
Right.
And I had been, like, I replied to the one thing that you wrote on Twitter. Like, I was very influenced by the Gimlet Media podcast, like Reply All and Mogul. And, I'm going to blank now and miss, like, 5 that I really like. But, like you said, This American Life, and I was interested in Serial and the things that came out from that family. And I'm trying to think. I think I had the idea bouncing around my head that it would be cool to do. But honestly, like, my memory is that the first episode, when you hear me in the car, is when I had the idea around the 6th hour I was driving. Well, like, and by idea, I mean to do it. I think I realized, like, you know what? I'm staying at Cecil's house, and I'm driving to Stutzy's right now. I just thought it was interesting to. Usually, people in the wrestling podcast world, when they get a guest, they don't know them personally.
Right.
And it's on the phone, and they're asking for the person's time. And I've been there. I've done that.
Oh, yeah.
With ECW, I had to do that, but in person, and it was even more awkward in some cases.
And
in other cases, you made friends with people.
I'm working with an actor right now who was in the original It miniseries back in 1990. He played one of the kids. I'm working with him for an interview because It is very prominent right now, and it's a hassle. Actors, man.
Exactly. And you've got to walk on eggshells, and you don't want to piss people off. And I had this unique place that I was in where I was very influenced by like different media, and I, kind of work with media, so it was easy to do. And I had a certain thought of a type of podcast that I wanted that just was very prevalent in podcasts right now that are popular, but hadn't made its way into the wrestling format, so to speak. And, I had connections with the Place to Be Nation guys going way back because of PWO. And I had this cool thing where, like, I'm friends with these people. I have, a built-in relationship and a trust, and they know what I do, and I do things for them. And so it made sense that if I'm just going to be sitting in people's homes, like, it's a cool thing to be able to just have a chat, but you can whip out your phone and record it, and that's a podcast. You know what I mean?
That was all recorded by phone?
It's very organic. What's that?
That was all recorded by phone? You didn't have any audio? Like, I'm sitting here next to a mixer. I got 2 monitors and a desktop computer. You're saying you recorded this whole thing on your phone?
Yeah.
Holy
on a Samsung Android, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't.
I feel like I've been shown up by a damn cell phone. What the hell, guys? Good night, everybody.
Oh, no. Well, believe me, like the audio work that my poor partner in crime, Kevin Kiernan, is having to do for some of the footage that I shot while I was down there, because we didn't have an audio guy that could be there. So the documentary, the Boys of Gibsonville, like, the audio has a lot of trouble because up until the final pickup shots, which were shot the week of SCI in early August, I just had a directional mic on a camera.
Right, you had like a shotgun mic that was built onto the camera, right?
Correct, yeah. I mean, it's independent of the camera, but then you got to deal with, like, the mixer inside the camera, and the camera's really cool.
Yeah.
The Canon. But, so it's different looking than what CWF usually does, and I'm shooting differently.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that audio it needed a lot of work. And here's a little tip for everybody. I'll just take you inside. If you're doing a documentary, what covers up audio and also makes every scene compelling is music.
That's right.
So it really helps if you have access to music, or somebody you work with, like I do, makes music, or you can just find it and get it licensed somehow. And so, yeah, I did it on a phone. Thankfully, right now it's a limited series, but the way it's plotted out is that the CWF Road Diaries will take us up to the Wednesday before the CWF FanCon on October 13th and 14th.
Nice.
In Gibsonville, North Carolina. Please come out. Contact me at John Philapavage.
We got a crawl running with all that info. Don't worry, they know it's coming.
Yeah, by the way, I love that. My Twitter pic was scraped from that wedding I went to.
That's right.
I always forget because you don't look at your own well, I don't look at my own profile.
It's the only goddamn pic of you I have. I even Googled John Philapavage in images. That's the only one that came up with you solo. So.
That might be the only pic that I have of me too. I'm not that person.
There you go.
I don't know that I have any selfies.
Nothing wrong with that.
But so yeah, well, if I have time, I talked with another Brad W from Place to Be Nation just recently, and if I can take more stuff down there, I will. But and that music, by the way, I keep saying it on there, but that's Poddington Bear that we use as kind of our title track. So look up PoddingtonBear.com, because Poddington Bear does a lot of cool stuff. That's just one of like hundreds of tracks that I think a guy that he does.
That's awesome. I want to ask you now about the boys at Gibsonville because we really have to get into reviewing the episode tonight. We've gone 30 minutes, but I mean, I wanted to ask you about this. When you were here on the show for the pre Absolute Justice show, you threw around that title, and it wasn't official yet. You're like, I kind of want to do the. I asked you what you were shooting that night, and you kind of hinted around it, and then you're like, I kind of want to do the boys of Gibsonville. That's what's running through my mind right now. It was very, very off the cuff with you, and now here it is. We have a trailer for it, or a teaser trailer, I guess you would say, for it.
Yeah, that would be more accurate because some stuff that's not. That was done before I shot anything in August, and plus I had to cut segments of things out of that to get it down to around 3 minutes.
I'm going to ask you here, and you could kayfabe me on it if you want to. It's fine, because I know that you can't let everything out of the bag yet. The way this is shot and what I'm getting from this teaser trailer, I'm hoping to God that this is a series of documentaries that we're seeing, that it's not going to be based around, just one episode. Because when I looked at this, it comes off as kind of episodic, and I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, there's more stories to tell around this promotion. Because maybe it's just because I go there on a semi-regular basis, and I'm sitting there going, there's so much more he could do. There's so much more he could do. So is this the only one that we're going to see? Are there plans to do more? I know it's very early infancy stages, and you may not even know yourself yet, but I have to ask.
I mean, there are no plans to. This was something that was just kind of thrown to me when I kind of landed. Right. And I don't know if I told this story last time, but I basically was going to shoot a bunch of other stuff for them. And the groundwork kind of wasn't there. For different reasons. There wasn't just one reason. But it just felt like everything kind of fell apart, and I was really frustrated. And I think Betsy sensed that. And we batted around an idea the night before I drove down. And then when I was about 30 minutes away from his house, he said, "Hey, I don't even know if I should say this. Basically, he said, if it made a project better, would you want to know how, the show finished? And, if there's a story behind it?" And I had already made that decision because once you're, walking around and you're not sitting in your seat anymore, you're working. In my mind, I'm working, And that doesn't mean for them. I've never collected a check from them. We just have a really good relationship, and, they don't stress me on anything, and I try not to stress them on anything, although I'm sure I do. But I said, yeah. And we sat down, and it was right before we recorded his interview for the Road Diaries. And he said, well, here's the deal. Here's what's going to happen. Here's kind of why. And he said, I know you do documentaries. Do you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I jumped at the chance. And he said, well, here's the three things that I would kind of need. And he's like, yeah, we can clear the path for that to happen. So it's really cool to have access to everything, where you get everything. And the only real stressor was, not that he was a stress, but the only stressor was Trevor, because Trevor Lee kind of marches to the beat of his own drummer.
Yeah, he doesn't do interviews.
And I don't have a relationship with Trevor.
Which is why people ask, I put Trevor Lee on a stupid little poll I did. And I put him up on there, and I along with Brad Stutz. I put Eric Andrews, and I forget the fourth person on there. And Kane Justice comments, goes, why are you doing this? 2 out of the 4 ain't even going to fucking do it. So I'm like, okay, yeah, he means Trevor and Brad, which Brad said he'll come on here when he has something to promote. My backlash to that is, you're a damn booker. You always have something to promote. But that's neither here nor there. But I can imagine the 3 things you would need are access to the talent, access to set up and shoot yourself, shoot your stuff, and maybe a little bit of an inclination as to how things are going to go. I'm gonna ask you, was that kind of like a? I can only imagine the look on my face if I was in your shoes and Brad looked at me, because I love this product and this promotion so much, and because I'm such a mark for it. I mean, hell, I'm doing a damn after show every Wednesday for it, for crying out loud. I can imagine that if Brad looked at me and said, do you want to know what happens at one of our biggest shows of the year? I would almost piss myself at the idea. What was your reaction to that when it's like, hey, we're going to let you in here a little bit?
I don't mean to be the cool guy in the room or be smug or jaded, but
do it, dude.
Like I've done this. Well, because that's not the way I.
Well, you've done it
it
before. I mean, you know.
Yeah. So like I've been backstage at a lot of shows, and like there's a certain level of like you're tested and you have to. Like, whether you realize it or not, you're either passing or failing tests on things, and it's how you behave and act and how you are. And the cool thing, I guess, in a weird way, is if you move to a certain place with that, like, it doesn't weird me, especially being down there. Like, I love that place, and I love those people, but it's not like when I was a kid, so to speak. And by kid, I mean my early 20s, and I'm interviewing, like I was very intimidated in interviewing James Fullington, the Sandman. And it was stressful interviewing Scott Levy because he's Scott Levy, who's Raven. And even people that were amazing to me, it's still like ECW was a really good boot camp because it's kind of this, like, everything's easy now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm older, I'm more confident, I know what I'm doing. I'm not a fanboy, and I wasn't really a fanboy then, but I was intimidated by the whole thing, and I was probably a little too much of a fan. Like, I had to be very aware of what I said to people and how I said it at all times, because you want to build a rapport, but you also don't want to be a phony ass kisser who's just like, thankfully I never wanted pictures and I never wanted autographs, but there's other like little indicators. You can't be too eager for things. And thankfully I became, again, I don't want to use the word jaded, it just was regulated within me. It's just part of, like, for me it was like, awesome, I already have the skill set and I already do these things and I already do stuff for the company for fun, and I have a relationship and a friendship with a lot of these people. And so him saying that to me would have been like really different if I were 22, but because I'd already like been around them and I was friends with them and I had made things for them, it really wasn't, it was like, oh, that's interesting. I was more like, God, don't say like a finish I don't want kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't the finish, because like you're always learning things. One of the things I learned is that they differentiate who's going over from the finish, because I kept using finish and to mean going over, but they were like, we don't know the finish. And I was very confused by what they were talking about. I'm like, you just told me the finish.
Now they tell them who's going over, and I guess the talent decide how they get there.
Yeah, and I never asked how, because that's their business, and it didn't have anything to do with what I needed to know anyway. So I imagine there's some sort of, in that case, if it were lower level, it would be, you know, some sort of older wrestler acting as an agent, or the booker, or Brad would say. But in the case of Trevor Lee, he's literally like, he shows up at the building when he wants because he's going to be there. He's not required to be kind of in the team meetings if he doesn't want to be. I mean, he really they have the confidence in him that he knows what he's doing. He doesn't need to necessarily be part of those things. He usually chooses to be. So I'm sure they didn't even know. So, but anyway, to get back to your thing, that was a cool moment. I was honestly more nervous about interviewing Stutzy, not because I was intimidated, because I'm friendly with him and I communicate with him, surely enough, but more so because I was definitely afraid I was going to have him sit there. We were going to have the best 30-minute conversation ever, and then I was going to pick up the recorder and find out, like, nothing, like, you couldn't hear anything.
Right.
That's what I was seriously, because we talked for a good 5 minutes before I stopped it, and I said, hey, can I just check this? Because I don't know that any of this, like, sounds good. So it worked out, though.
I want to give
all good.
I'm sitting here scrolling through Twitter as we're talking. I want to give a shout out to somebody. I don't know if you follow this guy, David Wyndham Jr. Out of Oswego, Illinois.
He does the drawings.
Yeah.
He's a great talent. I try to retweet whenever I'm doing live tweeting. I always retweet his stuff. I think he lives further away. I wish he would come down to see a show.
He lives in Oswego, Illinois, according to his Twitter page. Dude, phenomenal work, man. Phenomenal work. I like this. I don't know how.
He's a talent. He's somebody in the community that I always want to promote. Just like John Miller does the when he has time, he does a blog on CWF.
Yep.
And I always want to encourage him, because I want people not only find your talent, but within our community, it's cool, like you do on your own, because you want to. You give up your time to do this podcast. I think it's cool that you're going to come and do a podcast live at our Fan Fest, and hopefully we can accommodate you any way that we can all agree to. You know what I mean? Like, you already kind of gave me like a little list, and I don't see it as being any problem. In fact, somebody actually responded to your request in public on Twitter. So.
Yeah. I mean, where are you talking about as far as talent goes, or as far as what I need to actually? For me, I'm going to let people on a little bit on the inside of this podcast here, or internet radio show, because podcasts are taped. We're live. I'm debating on whether or not I want to, because I don't know how other podcasters do their show, but I have a full-on. It's a Yamaha MX 10XU soundboard. I have a microphone, and that needs its own power supply. But I also do this on my computer. I don't do it with like some voice recorder, which is why I'm amazed you did that on a fucking cell phone, because it sounds better than my shit does at times. So kudos to you, sir. But I'm debating on whether or not I need to lug all this equipment down there, or can I do this off my laptop? And the thing I'm worried about is laptops don't have as good of a sound card. So is this going to sound the same? Is it going to look the same? Is it going to, can the laptop handle all the programs it takes me to run this? Now, obviously, when I'm there live, I'm not going to need the chat room, because the chat room is going to be in front of me. I'm not going to need Skype, because you guys are in front of me. There's no goddamn internet access in that building. So all I would need literally is a computer and my sound equipment in OBS. So that's all I would need, and a table to put the crap on. But it's like, do I want to look like a teetotal Mark carrying a gaming rig in here to do a podcast? Do I want to embarrass myself? But then I'm sitting there going, to hell with embarrassing myself. I want this to sound good first and foremost, So that's the quandary where I'm at with this right now. And that's why I've been bugging you so much with DMs on Twitter going, do you have this? Do you have this? Can I have this? I'm a worrywart when it comes to crap like this, because I'm not the hugest podcast in the world, but for the people who do listen, I want it to sound good. So let's get into tonight's episode here. Episode 121. And it kicked off with, you said you were on the phone, so you really didn't hear the commentary, which is awesome. It's okay. They, as long as you watched the match, what did you think of Jason Kincaid versus Chip Day here, leading us off? This was for the, oh shit, I should have wrote it down. They're going to be there in a couple weeks. Then this is what happens when you go live and shit just blanks out. The Modern Vintage Wrestling title, I think, is what this was for. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So, and Jason Kincaid's the champion. I've only seen Jason Kincaid through like PWX, which is, I don't know if you've ever been to one of their shows. It's another promotion down in North Carolina. What did you think of this match?
This is funny to me because for years I was not a Chip Day guy. Now, nothing against him personally, but I just didn't. To me, for my personal taste, I just didn't feel he quite could get over the hump. Like, I saw that he had talent, but I just felt like a lot of guys who are kind of toiling, and I know it's tough, but I was like, well, he's just not fully committed enough, or he just can't get in the right spot. What's that?
He was just kind of there, and you read about him, but that was you read that he was all over the place, and that was about it.
I would see him. I mean, I saw him for the first time. He was in the Chicago Young Lions Cup in 2008 up here in Hellertown. And I don't have a great memory of him from that. Like, it didn't really leave an impression on me. And I had seen him, like, I would get him kind of pitched to me, so to speak. Not that that's the perfect phrase for it, but friends of mine who I trust would say, no, man, I'm a Chip Day guy. I like him. You should watch this match. You should watch this. I would scour the internet and sometimes and just, like, kill a night just watching YouTube stuff. And it just never quite clicked. And then he had that match with Trevor. And the gentleman who was a great proponent of him and a friend of his, Dylan Hales, was in the building that night. Yep. And I walked over to Dylan at the end of the match, and I was like, you win. I'm a Chip Day guy. Mm-hmm. That was my favorite match in forever. Probably my favorite match of all time live for me. The only thing that would come close would be Joe versus Kobashi up in New York in 2005. And Kincaid's a guy that I saw, and I was like, I like the idea of him, but no. I just think once you get over the gimmick and the interesting movement, that there wasn't anything for me. And honestly, every time I'd say that and I'd see him live, I saw him at Evolve, and I was like, okay, I don't know. and I saw him I think I saw him Mania weekend. But then I saw him at SCI, and he was just good enough. I was with JB, Jeremy Bryant, and I said, you know what? I think you're right about this guy. I think he's pretty talented. I don't know. There's certain things about him I have to kind of get over, but I can't deny that the guy is good. And then, so these guys had this match, and I didn't hear the commentary. I just watched the movement. I just stared at the TV while I was talking to, coincidentally, JB, my partner in the CWF FanCon. And I again said, you know, you're right about him. You're right about him. He's like, I know. I was there live. So this was a cool match, man. There's a lot of creative movement, a lot of it's just the intricacy is cool, but for me, it's when you can make it seem fluid without seeming A, dancey, or B, oh, now's the part where you do this, now's the part where I do that. It's a lot of footwork. It's spacing. Footwork is so underrated in pro wrestling.
Footwork is key.
Yeah, and it's just something that we don't talk about. Even as I've always kind of fallen in with very analytical fans who discuss it as kind of a performance art thing as well as just being a fan and stuff. And we don't even talk enough about footwork, I don't think. And this match had it, man. It had the brutality without being like, you know, that New Japan, like you hit me, I hit you. We're cowboys. Who's tougher? It had a story to it. I could tell without hearing commentary. I liked it.
You talk about footwork. It always reminds me of that one clip, and it's on WWE's YouTube page. I think it was even on an episode of Breaking Ground where they're going over forward rolls, and all William Regal wants these people to do is take one step forward with, I think it was their left or right leg after they complete the roll.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to teach these people, and person after person after person comes in, and they even have this one guy who throws some fake ass punch shadow boxing after he does the roll, and William Regal's like, you flail your arms around like a silly fucking tart, but you can't put one step forward. Do it again. Just that right there, watching that clip was like, I'm not a wrestler, I'm not in the business, I'll never claim to be in the business, but that one clip, just me as a fan, made me realize how important footwork actually is when having a match. Another thing about this match, I think that struck me, beside the footwork and just the overall work rate with Kincaid, and I agree with you completely. You had seen Kincaid up north. I'd seen him a couple times down here in PWX. But like you said, the gimmick and the hair and everything, once you got past that, it was like, okay, now what? But this match really cemented it for me. You know, I'm a Kincaid fan now. I get it. Dude can actually fucking work. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes it takes a few times seeing a guy, because people do change and people evolve over their career. I mean, it's been about a couple years since I've seen Kincaid. So this opened my eyes. And another thing I found here, and I wrote this down specifically, at one point during the match, he's working Chip Day's right arm, which is not something you see a whole lot up here, up in America. I found that really, really interesting, that I was sitting there going, is he working the right? And I actually had to rewind a little bit. And I'm like, he's working the right arm for a change. That was mind-blowing to me. You said you didn't get to hear the commentary on this match. The commentary was brilliant during this match, as always. You know, putting over Chip Day, putting over Kincaid. Kincaid hasn't really been seen a whole lot on CWF TV. They're putting over the Modern Vintage Wrestling Partnership, I guess you would call it, because they're coming back to the CWF Sportatorium later on this month for a War Games match, which features a lot of CWF talent. I like Chip Day's, the belly to back into the knee bar was good. Their little bit of an Indian deathlock and he butterflied the arms again was just. I said it to you off air, and I'll go ahead and make the statement now. This was probably my favorite. If you're going to encompass a full episode, not just one match, because I think the Chip Day Trevor Lee match was just one episode, wasn't it? I don't think they did anything. Yeah. So if you're talking about full episodes of Worldwide with an actual, 3 or 4 matches on it, I think this is my favorite episode of Worldwide this year, to tell you the truth. I mean, that one match aside, because I'm like you, that's my favorite match I've ever seen live. Chip Day, Trevor Lee, nothing can top that right now this year to me. But overall, I think this is one of my, if not my favorite episode of Worldwide this year. Got a power slam into a double stomp. I'm sorry, I'm a mark for this shit. I write shit down. So I'm sorry if I'm babbling on here, John. You've listened to the show before. You know what I do.
Yeah.
The crowd was pretty much split for this. I mean, you probably couldn't hear it, but the crowd was very, very split. They know Chip Day. It sounded like they've been, seeing Jason Kincaid in that ring before. I like the fact that the commentaries told the story of, you had the general knee by Chip Day into the heel hook. Kincaid, then you had a good cover by Kincaid. Kincaid wins by defense, and the commentary put that over here at the end because Cecil Scott especially put it over with, it didn't end with an offensive move. It ended with Kincaid playing defense and getting the pin. So I really like that call there by Cecil, and you got a handshake at the end. Anything else about this match here before we move on?
You are burying the lead. My biggest question is, did Cecil get a nickname this week?
Cecil Pepsi Throwback Scott.
Okay, good. Good for him.
My favorite one that I came up with was Cecil once got left at the Sportatorium by Mitch Connor, Scott, but that's a little bit inside for people. It was crazy. I got invited the last show I went to. I got invited to stay after, and I'm sitting there talking to Grant, and Cecil comes up, and I'm sorry, Cecil, if this embarrasses you. I have to tell the story, though. He comes up and goes, I don't have a ride home. My ride was Mitch, and Mitch left already because I guess this was the night of the big UFC fight, Cormier-Jones fight. So a lot of the talent were already left to go watch the fight. And I don't know if Mitch was one of them, but Mitch left Cecil at the Sportatorium that night, and I found it kind of funny. I was like, oh, poor guy, he got left. They have the handshake, and then this is what I love about CWF, guys. If you haven't, you need to check out this episode of Worldwide, just the flow of this show. And again, I don't know, the combination of Brad and Grant, when it comes to putting together a show and the flow of a show is just, they have this down pat. Kane Justice comes out for his match with the Dirty Daddy. He gives Kincaid a bit of a stare down, but the main thing was he gave a really hard stare down with Chip, continuing their little rivalry. I want to know your thoughts on this here. I think they're building up a rematch of these two at Battlecade this year. And I think you have to add some kind of stipulation to it.
That's my hope. I'm literally standing here with both fingers crossed. I want that very badly for Kane. Because I think that their first match was really cool. If you look at it as a first meeting that can build to something, or that can just, show that there is a feud in them, I think it was booked really well, and I think it was laid out and worked really well, and I think they could have a hell of a match. And Kane's a real talent, and I want him to be able to work with guys who have traveled and eventually be able to travel himself. So I loved, when I saw that, I was like, yes, because it makes sense with the timeline. I mean, I don't want to say anything because I don't know. You know what I mean? Because it isn't as if I'm like holding back on something. I haven't heard anything, but I don't know. Maybe you could. I don't know what Chip Day is doing the weekend of the Rumble, but you could see something there.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that something builds to, even if they do happen to have a match, I hope it's open-ended and they have a blow-off match at Battlecade. I think that would be really cool.
I mean, it's pretty clear we're getting, he's not going to be fighting for the title at Battlecade because it's pretty clear to me. Well, it's not clear. Nothing's ever clear when it comes to Stutzy's booking. I've learned that over the last 2 years I've been going. But the way Chip won the Weaver Cup, it's kind of my fantasy booking is that you're going to see Trevor Lee versus Chet Sterling in a babyface versus babyface match at Battlecade, and I think that's where Trevor's going to lose it to Chip. To Chet. Sorry, I don't know why I said Chip. Chet. And that maybe is the road that they're going in. Maybe it's not. Roy Wilkins still has the golden ticket. There's a lot of factors that come into play there. If you're fantasy booking, follow the bouncing ball. But how do you feel? I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I know you don't want to say anything to get yourself in trouble, so I'll let you get off with an easy answer on this one. On the after show here this year, since we've been doing this, I've been kind of critical about the way Kane Justice has been booked. I've compared it to a very much like a Kurt Angle rookie year. If you look at Kurt Angle in the WWE, won the title within his first year. And Kane, I've kind of wanted Kane to follow suit with that because he is so hot and he is so young. What is your opinion about the way they've kind of toned him down, for lack of a better term?
I think that well, first of all, I don't.
I know I put you on the spot here. I'm sorry, but it's the after show.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. I'm going to answer, but I do want to say one thing. Like, I don't know a lot of things, just in case you or anybody else thinks. Like, that one story, which I felt was necessary to tell the story of how Gibsonville came together. That's like completely on an island. That doesn't tell me anything.
I know that you're just a fan, just like us, and they don't really tell you anything. But at the same time, when I say, you can pussy out on the answer, for lack of a better term, is I don't want you to say anything or give an opinion that strikes them the wrong way. So I don't think it ever would, because I've ran shit by
they're not those people. They're really not those people, which is really cool because you're talking about, and when I say I mean the general you, like all of us. We're talking about their baby that they give so much time to, and like I certainly have been in a position where I've done creative works. Like I've had to read some. Most of them were good. I've read some really vicious, crappy reviews of things that I've done, like documentary work and different things, and then had to like meet the guy. Oh. And even though I want to deal with it on an intellectual level and just talk to them about it or the reasons why this happened or that didn't, and you can't assume everything. I know, it's really hard and there's a million little choices you have to make. And a lot of times things go wrong, not because of your choice, but because you didn't get something. Like, for example, with not what I do, but what Stutzy does, if a dude doesn't show up, you got to rebook things.
Yeah.
And it's really tough when you're a small indie, you don't have people under contract. I think we had this conversation.
Yeah, we did.
About somebody, for absolute justice. Anyway, so it's difficult. I don't have as much of a problem with Kane. I think you also have to think about it on like a human professional level. And I'm not saying this has anything to do with it because I don't know, but I know that it's important. He's a very young man and he's really good. And I'm actually friendly with the guy. So I've gotten to have many conversations with him privately. And I know that he understands, even though a lot of times he wants to run, he has to make sure he knows how to walk. He's absolutely learned how to walk. But he has to make sure he knows how to have his footing to run and then sprint. And I think they're waiting for the right time for him because there are a lot of tests with young wrestlers, and this is the thing we as fans don't always think about. There are a lot of maturity tests. And there are a lot of times where it has to deal with slots and who's ahead of you and who's behind you and who's going to be here this week. And they know that he is very committed to CWF. And he's very committed to whatever role that they give him. And he has passed every test they've given him with flying colors. I think a lot of things have to do with the fact that he still has the RGL championship and he's wrestling a lot. Like, he's gotten to be in a six-pack challenge with Trevor Lee already, and that was like within his first like half year.
Yep.
He got to be. I mean, he's had the RGL since Battlecade. He's getting promo time on their shows, and they don't give out a lot of promo time in general. He got a singles match with Chip Day. He's been in a lot of important slots for them, and I just think that they don't want to rush him up to just hanging with the big boys if they're just going to have to job the guy out,
Wrestling God in our chat room goes, CWF wrestling is a marathon, not a sprint, if you understand it. And me and Wrestling God had a deep conversation about this, and he's like, you got to remember, these guys have been doing it for years. He's been doing it all of maybe 6 months, and that's when it kind of clicked for me. But then I'm sitting here watching. I went back and I'm a mark for the Attitude Era of WWE. I really am. It's when I grew up. So I grew up during that. It's what made me a fan, pretty much. But I'm sitting there going, Kurt Angle was a rookie. Kurt Angle was pushed to the freaking moon in that first year. I mean, he started off slow and all that, but within the first year, he was the man, And I'm sitting there going, I look at Kane Justice in the same light. That's just me. But then I'm sitting there going, the other side of that is it's not WWE. It's an indie federation. They're not just going to hotshot a guy that they don't know if he's going to be with them or not in 6 months, Because not that it's going to probably happen, but Kane Justice could in 6 months go, okay, I'm going to hit the road for a while. I'm going to go to Japan or I'm going to go to England and get myself better. He's a young kid. Why not? So I totally get that dichotomy of it. And with the marathon being a sprint, I totally understand. All I can say about his match tonight with the Dirty Daddy is, where has the Dirty Daddy been hiding the last 9 months? I've been also critical about the Showtime thing, and Angle has been the Olympic gold medalist. You're right about that, Wrestling God. He was an Olympic gold medalist, but they also made it very clear in that first year of him also being not a professional wrestler. There was a couple of times on commentary in that first year where they were like, yeah, now he's got to hang with WWE guys. So anyway, the Dirty Daddy. I watched this match and I'm sitting there going, this is better than their fucking Battlecade match. This was way better than their Battlecade match. And I'm sitting there going, where has Daddy been hiding the last 9 months? And then I'm sitting there going, he was in a tag team with Snooty Fox. So what were your thoughts on this rematch from Battlecade with Kane versus the Dirty Daddy?
My expectations were a little lower, still relatively high because it's a Kane match, and I think he works well with Daddy. But I had been told the night that it happened by two separate people that I think everybody agrees that the Battlecade match in a weird way was like a peak, and I hate saying that because I think Kane, if he heard that, would take it the wrong way. But it's just that match, they were so on point, and sometimes it all falls together. It's because the second match was good. It just wasn't like they didn't get hit with a magic lightning bolt. Sometimes you just get hit with a magic lightning bolt. And so I said, I know it's probably not Battlecade, but is it as good as the second match or is it third? And they said about even. And I liked the second match a lot. I thought, I need to watch this again because I was watching this. This is right at the end of this is when I got off the phone and turned the sound on. And I'm watching this and I keep looking over and losing myself. I wasn't fully participating in the phone conversation. And I'm just like, this is intense.
It was.
These guys, there's your sloppiness here and there from two young guys, and it's because they have a certain amount of time. People forget CWF matches are really short a lot of times comparatively, and they're not doing the WWE style of, okay, you get your stuff. These are your pattern things that you get in, and that's not a knock on WWE. But it doesn't have the same type of structure because it's not for a mainstream audience. And so a lot of times guys, you get winded, but you want to keep going. You want to keep up the intensity. You want to get all your stuff in that you thought you could do or that you talked about in the back. And all of a sudden, you're losing 30 seconds. So there's those moments where you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But then at the same time, I'm like, even the stuff, for me, things can be sloppy as long as they look real. And I thought anytime that they got a little bit out of whack, it looked like a fight. That's the cool thing. And that's not sloppy a guy dropped the guy on his head by accident and it clearly was a screw-up. That's just rolling with it. This had so much intensity that this in the main event I really want to sit down and watch again.
The start of the match.
Just full on.
Yeah, the start of the match was crazy because Kane is already in the ring. He's holding up the belt. Daddy comes out and Kane is a heel, as Bruce Pritchard would do with his imitation. He's a heel, motherfucker. So he goes for a damn belt shot. And Daddy ducks it and turns it into a double leg. And I'm like, that escalated fucking quickly. The intensity was there right from the start. You still with me?
Yeah. No, I didn't know. I thought you were just going to keep going.
No,
yeah.
no, sorry. I put here that they went for the twist ending right off the bat. There was a really good flow to this match. And like you said, every time you think that something was, screwed up and you're like, okay, this is going to go to hell. Or every time something was off, because I really didn't see anything screwed up in this match at all, Daddy would come back with a really good stiff shot. And I like the quote-unquote stiffness, I think you would. There was a lot of stuff here that Dirty Daddy showed me that I've never seen before out of him. This was like it was an entirely new Dirty Daddy to me working this match.
It was brawler stiff.
Yes.
Which is different from like I kick you while you let me kick you,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm unprofessional with you to get over with the audience. It was that's what I mean by kind of the stuff that like sometimes can look sloppy and sometimes it's just like that's the flow of it. Where like you're just like, I don't know if they were supposed to break down like this, but I'm kind of glad they did.
The airplane spin into the brain buster was freaking phenomenal. I wrote down so much crap here, and I don't want to take. I looked here. I put here, Daddy needs to break. And I may be overstepping my bounds with this. I know people are going to be like, Joe, you're such a naysayer. But I put here, this shows me that Daddy does not deserve to be in a damn tag team. This match proved everything I've been saying about Showtime, I guess, for the last, 6 months, I guess, right. I was like, he's so much better on his own. This was so good. I want more of this. Please have me, maybe not just this guy, but I want to see. For me, this style of Dirty Daddy that we got, that was the focus of the match for me. Kane is awesome. Kane is going to be good no matter what. But the standout of this match to me was it was like we got a new side of the Dirty Daddy that I really hadn't seen before. The sunset flip bomb was good. I like the fact that instead of a double clothesline, they did a double back elbow and they both knocked themselves, each other out, quote unquote. Ends with a, Dirty spitting in his face and ends with the match ends with a twist ending. Justice keeps it on even after the match. And the emotion.
He bit his finger, didn't he?
Yeah. And
it was out of nowhere, which I really liked. It was so intense and it ended I'm a big fan of matches that end when they should end and also end on the perfect note.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that it was such a, it was cool because the heel went over, but it was kind of like, he was like, F you, I'm done with this. And he caught him. It wasn't like Daddy was inept or completely got embarrassed or anything. It was just a split second, and there was a lot of emotion to it, even after the fact. And I really loved the finish. I want to watch this match again.
The finish was great, and then you talk about emotion. The emotion on Dirty Daddy's face after this match ended was so good. It was like, yes, this kid gets it. He, more people should pay attention to this stuff because I feel like CWF has been doing it more than others in that their performers there show emotion. They show just the look on his face after this match was just phenomenal. There's no way to describe it. I encourage everyone to go back and watch this. Hell, I'm going to go back and watch it. It was just so good. Anything else on this match before we move on?
No, I do have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think that Dirty Daddy in a tag team hinders his development?
Yes.
Is that which? Okay.
Yes.
And you don't think that it's a okay? See, I'll push back. I'll give the other side on this, which is that you do need people to fill your tag team ranks because they do have a good tag team division, and part of that sometimes is bodies. Him and Snooty are learning, and they certainly have personalities. They probably will be forces individually, but this gives them ring time where they have a safety net, which is each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if they kind of get in trouble, they can tag out. That would be my argument for the existence of Showtime, which I kind of like because it gives them something to do. Because again, it's kind of my argument with Kane is, and it's Wrestling God's argument, which is it's a marathon, not a sprint, and especially in CWF, where they want to develop these guys and see where they're at, and also, and it's not just a test, like an evil test thing. Not that tests have to be evil. They're part of the develop. It's just like in baseball, you don't get to go right up to the major leagues.
No.
You go like spring ball and fall ball and A ball and then double A and then triple A, and there's all these different things that you have to go through.
Right.
And even on the major league level, you might be a bench warmer and you might be working with a specific coach on something for a while. I think that they're developing at the rate that they have to, and not everybody develops at the same rate. But that doesn't mean, for the record, that you are A, wrong, or that B, that means that Showtime is the greatest tag team. Like that this tag team needs to have the belts on them, or that they shouldn't exist, or anything like that.
What do you think about the way they've been deviating from the Dirty Daddy character? Because in this match, they didn't mention anything, yeah, I get it, it's a gimmick. Everybody knows that he's not really a damn guy who slept with an NWA promoter in Seattle or the Pacific Northwest's wife and got kicked out. Now he's having to start from the bottom, which is just hilarious to me.
I believe it was something to do with Don Owens.
Don Owens,
in
yeah.
Portland. I'm a big mark for Portland, so that's why I'm like, hey, get the names right.
He slept with Don Owens' wife, and he got
right, which is pretty funny if you've ever watched Portland, because Don Owens by like 1980 was already like 70 years old.
So but the thing is, that was his gimmick, and that's the thing for the Johnny Cash theme song and the gear and the way he works and everything. And now it seems like, with the tag teaming with Showtime, and now with this match, they're kind of getting away from that and kind of peeling off that layer. What are your thoughts on that? Because part of the reason why I fell in love with the Dirty Daddy so much was the explanation of that character, and because he was acting, he was playing the part.
It's a delicate. I have a pretty funny analogy for this, actually. I think it's a delicate balance, because that's your special that gets you in the door of the restaurant, and then they want you to buy more, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a short-term gimmick. It's brilliant, but it's a short-term thing, unless his career trajectory is that of Rob McBride present day, and not like Rob McBride 10 years ago when he was a main eventer there. I don't think they want him to be a gimmick performer forever. And part of the gimmick is to get him comfortable and get him over while he's developing. Mm-hmm. And I think at a certain point, and you never know what point that's going to be, and sometimes it's a chance. Some guys fail, and some guys sink, some guys swim, as they say. I think they feel that at this point, it's time to make Daddy more, because he's never going to be a substantial singles guy with that gimmick.
With that gimmick,
He could do that gimmick for 25 years, and as long as it stays in vogue, even if it's just in CWF, he'll always have a spot. But he has no upward mobility with it. So I think that they're starting to phase it in the way that, like, a lot of us have been saying, look, if you want Chet Sterling to be the next guy, I think you were among a group of us that are hardcore CWF people who were like, Chet Sterling's winning the Weaver. And that had been my feeling going back to, like, March.
I thought they were going to give it to Kane, but then I was like, when Kane got eliminated, I was like, okay, it's Chet's here.
Yeah, I think I, like, sentimentally fooled myself into thinking maybe they'd somehow, like, rocket ship Kane. And ultimately, I understand why they didn't, because there are other people. They have other options that they want to move on, because they're a history company and they have some history with Chet and Trevor.
Right.
Like it reminds me. It's what we were saying about Chet and why I still get frustrated, because oh my God, did he look good in that Weaver Cup episode last week? And I like serious Chet, who doesn't wear the vest or the tie or the glasses or point to his what do they call those, mutton chops?
Mm-hmm.
I like serious Chet's a contender, and he needs to go. Trevor's doesn't mix with that, and I mean that on a shoot level as well as like a work, like storyline level. Like Trevor tests people in that ring. It's very 1970s territorial pro wrestling with that guy.
Yeah, when you look at Chet Sterling with the glasses and the vest and the tie, and then you look at Trevor Lee the way Trevor Lee is now, unless you were really, in the know and you were watching CWF for the first time, you'd never believe that they used to be in a stable together.
Yeah, and Trevor will smack the shit out of that guy even if he's his best friend.
Yep.
In a match, just because he wants to. That's the Nick match. I mean, honestly, like, vague spoiler, when people see the documentary, if I ever have time to edit this damn thing, I think a lot of people are going to think that I made a worked, like, WWE documentary for them, and we did not communicate on anything with it. And I do my due diligence because I don't like getting messed with when, like and people who listen to this would know that I've made videos for them to build up worked drama.
Yep. But
when it comes to documentaries, I would be livid if I, was halfway through the process and found out that they were working this. Because in that case, tell me from the beginning and we'll talk about doing a special. We'll talk about, producing something that's, more of a work thing that I can help craft.
Mm-hmm.
The storyline in, like, Sons of Gibsonville very much mirrors the storyline that you see presented on TV in a lot of senses, and you'll get a lot more of a background of these guys in their real life. But that's because it's very much that old ethic of pro wrestling. It's like, they used real life stuff. These guys were very close in real life, and then there was a little bit of a splinter, and they're still relatively cool, but Trevor has moved on to another level, and Nick hasn't, and Trevor really was resentful that his friend didn't come with him and didn't dedicate himself.
Yeah.
And that match is brutal, and that's real. You know what I mean? It was a worked finish, but, like, you don't work what they did in there. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's the thing about describing it to people. They only see black and white. They only see shoot or quote-unquote fake. That was a scripted match that they worked out where Nick knew the day before that he was going to get the crap beat out of him and that he was going to have to fight through it and earn it. It's kind of like when guys do holds and they say, I want you to take it from me. And I've seen this happen in action in other places where an older guy wants the younger guy. I think you saw it with Mitch and Kane in that opening match at Absolute Justice. They did a lot of, like, shoot wrestling within the worked match, and Mitch was daring Kane, like, take it from me. If you want control of this segment of our laid out match, you have to take it, or I'm going to eat you up until the finish. So anyway, the analogy that I would make is for Dirty Daddy to circle all the way back and shut up. Is when I shot the ECW documentary Barbed Wire City, I spent time at that ECW reunion show, and they the Brain Trust there wanted to have a promotion. And so and I didn't understand, and I would speak to them candidly and say, I don't understand how you're going to do a reunion show and then turn it into a promotion unless you're getting guys ready on the first show. They felt that they couldn't because it was the reunion show. They booked other shows, and then I would see, like, they're booking Sabu again, even though he missed the main event of their first show. Their argument to me was, well, we announced him and it sold an extra 100 tickets the first 2 days. And my argument to them was, you're living off of this limited thing that's going to have diminishing returns. So yes, you can announce Sabu for every show and bump it up 50 to 100 people, but you want to have a place filled with 2,000 people every show, and you're only going to have 400 people.
Yeah. You
need to create new stars. That's what Heyman did with ECW, which is funny because they were trying to mimic ECW.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and they died. And rightfully fucking so, because they were ignorant and arrogant about it.
They were. I was so happy when I heard that shit, And then Shane Douglas came back and tried it again. And it was like, that fell flat on its face with him.
Yeah. So, and Shane wasn't there by the end, for the record. I'm not, Shane's an interesting guy, but, he wasn't even there at the end of that. That was a group of people, and it got very goofy. But that's a whole other story. Point is, Snooty needs to evolve, or it will have diminishing returns for him, and it's a question of when. And I like that they're starting to dance a little bit away from it, because you can always have little echoes in the same way that you had McAllister with the mask with Mecca. You can always have echoes of things.
I agree with you on this, but the thing is, I look at this as going, I watched Snooty Fox on those Chapel Hill shows on the YouTube thing, and I'm like, guy's pretty good when he, I don't know whether being in his hometown fueled the guy and he had his family there or whatever. I don't know the story about it, but I'm like, the match he had there on those Chapel Hill shows was good. And then they put him back at the tag team, and it's just like, oh, we're back to this. I don't know. It's just it's my personal thing as a fan. Again, it's fan is short for fanatic for a reason. We all have our opinions, and, opinions are like, what? Everybody has one, but it's just like, I look at this match tonight, and I'm sitting there going, if I never see him team up with Snooty Fox again, I'm okay with it. As long as we get, this version of Dirty Daddy, what I saw tonight, it's like, if he never teams up with Snooty again, I'm fine with it. I can take it or leave it.
I'd like to say one thing at the I don't know, at the peril of angering CWF management, because they haven't seen it yet. While we were talking, I just got back the final copies from my audio and color correction guy, and so I will just say, vague tease, that in the upcoming weeks there will be some features that involve Snooty Fox that I think are really cool, and you're gonna get to see Snooty, the man of the people.
I look at it this way: if they could find a way to expand that character a little bit, it might do him some good and feature some stuff on him. Right now, I just know that he's a guy from Chapel Hill, and that's what gets him over. That's how I see it. We go back to the ring after that match. There, we have our usual I think this is where they had the training school vignette or commercial that they do, and then CL Party's in the ring. She's about to announce this match. I love CL Party. CL Party, she's probably one of the best, interviewers in the business, just because the emotion is raw, and she doesn't wing. She wings it every single time. She even says, nothing's planned out. These are my raw reactions, and I'm just like, keep doing it. Coach comes out blowing his whistle, and she's sitting there going, Carrie's not even here. What the hell? And he's like, I don't care if Jerry Carey's not here. You're still not good enough to announce Roy Wilkins, or excuse me, Eric Royal. So the coach announces Eric Royal, and we have this big, huge match with two guys that I've never seen before. So if you've seen two of these guys, I'm trying to pull up their names here. Because it was.
One of them, I believe, was Mike Mars.
Yeah, Mike Mars, who was. They said, I have it here. Where is it? I wrote it down. They akin him to somebody who would be in Devastation Incorporated and World Class. And when they said that, I was like, holy crap, Stutzy's dead right about that guy. I could totally see Gary Hart cutting promos for him. One of them is Mike Mars. The other guy was Bo Crockett, who had...
He usually teams with Isaiah.
Okay.
Innocent Isaiah.
Okay.
They do Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, okay. So, Bo, though, his ring gear, when I saw his ring gear, I'm like, is this guy from Wrestle Circus? Or is he going to Wrestle Circus? Because he had, like, the big tent with the Bo show and all that on there, and I'm like, it's certain talents I see like them, or like Bo, and then I even see the Carnies, who apparently CZW announced if they get in a certain amount of retweets, they're going to bring the Carnies in for something, which I was like, holy shit, the Carnies and CZW? Fuck yeah. But I'm wondering why the Carnies, and maybe I missed it, why they haven't been invited to Wrestle Circus yet, because I'm like, if there was ever a gimmick that needs to be down there, it's them. But that's neither here nor there.
Influential people have tried, and I'm not talking about myself in the third person at all. People more influential than me have tried. I don't know what the deal is with that. It doesn't seem like there's any movement on it. But I know people were trying.
Yet they'll fucking book Joey Ryan. Anyway. So it's Eric Royal versus Bo Crockett versus Mike Mars. versus Mecha Mercenary versus Aaron Biggs versus Snooty Fox in a second chance six-pack scramble. And the winner gets an immediate shot at Trevor Lee. The match, I really didn't have too many notes about the six-pack scramble because I like the fact that they had the storyline of the Sandwich Squad having to kind of go one-on-one, and they kind of had a shoving match, and then something would happen where they would end up having to team up against two guys. I liked Mecha. I put here Biggs has his own merchandise now, which I don't think I've ever seen an Aaron Biggs t-shirt before. So if you're a fan of Aaron Biggs, hopefully you'll have t-shirts for sale at the next time he's there. And I enjoyed the little six-pack scramble that they had. I liked the fact that it was not elimination. I think I watched this with headphones on and through my soundboard, so anything that gets said like in the background, I'm gonna hear it. And at one point, the ring announcer and timekeeper Randy goes up and has to ask Grant, "This is elimination, right? It's one fall to a finish." So they had to kind of get reminded of the rules, and I love pointing little bloopers, behind the scenes things out like that.
I love the production stuff.
Yeah.
I love when they work it too, or what I assume is working, where you'll hear Grant and somebody else talking, and it sounds like they're genuinely. Or there was one thing that happened with the Dawsons when he grabbed CL Party and was like, "Okay, hold on," and he's like, "All right, I think it calmed down. I think everything's under control. You can announce it now."
Yeah.
And obviously, they had worked out what was going to happen beforehand. But I love that moment because they genuinely seem concerned, like the Dawsons were going to throw a chair in the ring and hit her or something.
CO came out after the match the next day because she listens to the after show. Shout out to CL Party. Thank you for listening. She goes, "I didn't know that was going to happen." She goes, "That was raw. I didn't know that was going to happen. They had to tell me to." She goes, "I was getting ready to bolt, and Grant was like, 'No, get back in the ring. We're going to do it."
I didn't know that. That's even better.
Mm-hmm.
CL Party's super talented.
She
listens, and I've actually had the chance to work with her, and she is such a pro. I had written out a whole bunch of stuff for something that I shot over Absolute Justice weekend, and Brad had told me before I even came down, he's like, "This is a good idea." He's like, "Just give bullet points and they'll work it out." And I was working with CL, and I really only had to tell her there were times when I felt like the least professional person of the three of us that were running around doing something. They were just so good. And thankfully I got enough coverage that it looks pretty cool. But yeah, I didn't really have to do a lot for her. She's just so talented.
I think with CL, it's even going back to when she was Daisy Sue Fuentes on the TNA stuff that they did, I'm just sitting there going, somebody's going to gobble her up one day. It's going to happen sooner or later. And I'm just sitting there going, I hope it's not WWE. I hope to God I'm not seeing her one day going, "My guest at this time is..." I'm just sitting there going, she's way too good for that crap. I was like, if nobody else picks her up and uses her like that, stay in CWF because you're way too good to be treated like that by Vince. Mecca ends up winning, and I don't think they pointed out in the commentary for this how Trevor's coming out fresh for this match, and Mecca's already been working for a period. To me, that if I was doing it, that's something I'd point out. I don't even think they said, "Oh yeah, it's an immediate shot," but I don't think they put over the fact that Trevor's has an advantage here and that Trevor's fresh. Trevor hasn't worked it at all during this episode. So, what did you think about? Let's do the six-pack scramble because it's been a while since I've seen a scramble match like this. What did you think of the scramble match?
I thought some of the stuff worked and some of it didn't. I thought Eric Royal was the glue. I don't know that he is the absolute vet there, but as far as the CWF ring, he ring generaled it pretty well. I laughed at the fact that he still had his ring jacket on halfway through the match because he could have thrown it off at any time. And I like that he does stuff like that. I like guys that just, it's almost like he's if it were real life, you would be scurrying way too much to even worry about. You wouldn't want to drop your hands just to shimmy the jacket off. And I love that Snooty went for him right away because he had interrupted that Snooty promo a few weeks back. I don't even know that they touched. I don't remember if they touched on it in commentary, but they had a neat little thread in there that could even be, and I don't know again, but like could be teasing things for Snooty and him down the road.
Well, him and Snooty are having a match at their Chapel Hill show at the end of the month.
Oh, so that was booked. Okay, I didn't realize
they mentioned it on commentary tonight.
Royal is a good guy to program with a young guy like him, because he can make him look like $1 million and teach him a lot, and he's a guy who is likable that you can work with. That he's a vet that you can trust, who won't, grind you up and spit you out, but you'll learn a lot from.
Yep.
So if you lose yourself in the middle of something, he's going to take over, but he's also going to let you, have some rope. I didn't get a feel for Bo Crockett or Mike Mars in this at all.
Neither did I.
Maybe it's because I wasn't looking for them, honestly. I was looking at the bits and mecha interactions. I'm always like a little bit weird when guys like in the ring are like, "Hey, you hit me or I hit you," only because I feel like if you're a tag team, like, and this is a realism, narrative-driven fed. So I do wish, my one criticism would be that I wish they would have had language, since they went back and forth verbally before they started shoving each other, like one of them going like, "Hey, we talked about this. If it comes down to you or me, we just go. What are you mad about?" And go back and forth like that. Whereas they kind of acted as if it was the first time that it dawned upon either of them that they would have to throw hands at any point. And I'm not a big fan of, I've seen that before, and I never like when it dawns on them in front of everybody. It comes off as a little awkward to me.
And this is another thing that the commentary could help. The commentary can kind of help set stage throughout the night, because throughout the show they're mentioning the scramble that's going to happen. And they nowhere during the commentary during the show did they go, "Oh, well, it's going to be interesting to see the Sandwich Squad in there having to face each other. What if those two end up locking horns?" Something like that. And we didn't get that. I think that could have helped things as well.
Yeah, possibly, or honestly, definitely. And otherwise, I'm sorry. I don't know that there's anything to this. I was just honestly like anticipating. You have a lot of big guys in there, and people are knocking around. I just hope that nobody like in real life clips their knee and like twists an ankle, or like, because big guys, they fall, and like if I fall, I'll get back up. Maybe I bruise my knee, but they could just mess themselves up for years to come.
Yep,
I'm glad that it came off and nobody died.
You've seen me in person. I'm not the skinniest guy in the world. I know how it is. So the finish of it kind of came out of nowhere. It was like Mecca just wins out of nowhere, which, okay, Mecca's getting a shot. I like Mecca. I enjoy. He's Mecca Mercenary to me. And I even put this on Twitter after the results of this came out online. I'm sitting there going, Mecca Mercenary has the potential to be a damn good single star and a damn good baby face. When you talk to him at the merchandise table, like I was wearing a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shirt, and me and him just went on a 5-minute discussion about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's so good with the fans, and he's always good to my son. He'll take a picture of my son anytime my son wants to take a picture with him. He always tells my son, "Do your mean face," and him and my son take a picture. So he's really good with children, and his character is such that, he's Mecha Mercenary. I don't know. There's something about him that I really, really like, and I think that if they ever do decide to let him branch out and be a singles guy, the potential is definitely there. And it showed during this match, too. What did you think about the match with him and Trevor?
Oh, I loved it, and I know that I've gone back and forth with friends privately, who just are like, "Oh, you're so in the bag for CWF, but particularly Trevor," and like, okay, well that's my dude, man. Like, and I don't mean on a personal level. Thankfully I'm cool with him because I interviewed him twice, but I don't have I have no stake in the game. I'm not going to his house after a show to hang out and have a beer. I just think he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent, and I hope it's not particular to this place, but I do think that it is like a Danielson in ROH in 2006 or a Flair in NWA in like 85 or 89. It's really a once-in-a-lifetime run. And I know that there are people who are having a little bit of Trevor Lee fatigue as far as the title run goes, and they think it's just like, it's this out-of-control locomotive that at this point, like, anybody who beats him would be a disappointment. I say let the booking decide, and I have a lot of faith in Stussy. Matches like this are why I love him, because I feel like he has so many stories in him, not only as far as the match narrative and what they do with their bodies, and then how that's accented by Cecil and Stussy, but just if you were looking at this as kind of like if you pretended that wrestling was a shoot, so you do run into the ropes and you have to bounce off them and yada, yada, yada. He found a way to win without doing the STF, which commentary had mentioned. Like, how are you going to do that to this guy, even if you can ground him? He did everything he could to take it to Mecca before he got his ass beat and had to adjust. He had to overcome. This is a different match than a powerhouse type with Otto, but he's had two very successful matches with Otto. The second, just a few weeks ago, was even better than the first. And if you would have told me, in fact, I got the text right after the show. Mecca won the six-pack and faced Trevor, and my honest and the knee-jerk reaction, and I like Mecca, was like, oh, they're just kind of like killing a week for a title defense.
Yeah, they're feeding him. They're feeding a guy to Trevor. Right.
It's just a guy that people know and like, and it's kind of like an intrigue thing, but it's not going to be too much in the ring. No, this was the best, arguably the best I've ever seen Mecca. Certainly in a singles capacity, because most of my watching is worldwide era. I have gone back and watched some single stuff, but I hadn't seen a lot of him as a single, and he's not usually, quite my style outside of a big Hoss tag team thing. And the diversity in this match that he showed, I mean, and like you said, he'd already had a match before that. In real life, this dude is a big dude who gets fatigued. And that played into it, but I don't think in real life that Mecca was like, hey, we got to, give me a minute, we got to stop. He kept going.
He wasn't blown up at all. There was not one point in this match that I could sit there and look and say, Mecca's blown up here. He wasn't.
The only time that he stalled was like the one time I'm thinking of, and I think there was one other, but towards the end when he went to drop the elbow, he was doing the wrestler thing where you give too much time, and commentary points it out, and then you drop the elbow from the second rope. But he wasn't sucking wind while he was up there. He was waiting for the moment. He was somewhat playing to the crowd, playing to Grant's camera. Yeah. I was just so impressed with this. I loved the ending. The one thing that stands out to me that if you ask me, like, well, why do you like Trevor, and to get into these arguments, because you can watch a guy too much that there's going to be a backlash to everybody, especially in this day and age, where everything's out there and you could watch 100 hours of pretty much every prominent worker. He does the little things narratively that I love, but just the way he makes contact is interesting, the stuff in between the moves, the talking to people, the looks, the facial expressions, and then the selling when he gets beat down, the way he has to come back and kind of summons something inside himself and the crowd helps to will him. I love that whole narrative. There's only so many stories you can tell in wrestling, and he tells probably 5 more than most entire federations do. And I love all the stories he tells. So I really like this match. I'm not going to say it's like his greatest title defense yet, but it was a really good one, for an era where everything seems to start at 3 stars. I start at 0 stars. If you have to quantify it, I always start at 0 stars. I've never seen Trevor have a match below, say, 3 1/4 to 3 1/2. I feel pretty confident in saying I've never watched a Trevor match where I've gone like, hand wave, 2 stars at best kind of thing. And again, I know stars can be controversial. I'm using them just as a quantifying reference.
Yeah. I look at it this way. If I had to give this match a star rating, me personally, 3.5. Easily 3.5. Mm-hmm. 3 and 3.75 even, because it was just the psychology. And I don't know if this was meant to happen, but you go to that top rope spot where Mecca's climbing the ropes, and he slips off.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there going, I don't know if that was meant to happen, But I get why it happened, and I get why in the commentaries they were quick to sell it. And I was like, this is why commentary is so important to wrestling. This is why I've had arguments here on this channel with other people why I cannot watch a New Japan show unless there's commentary that I can understand. Commentary is so important to professional wrestling. So, and this proved it here, because I don't know if Mecha meant to slip on those ropes or not. And now I don't care, because the commentary sold it. Mecha, him having to go through another match and then do this, sold it. It doesn't matter if it was a planned bid or not. Couple things I wrote down here. I like the spot where Trevor's going for the outside penalty kick and Mecha misses. And then Mecha's trying to do like the damn Polish hammer to knock him off the ropes, and he misses that. And then he misses again, and then on the third time, Trevor finally gets it. But he still doesn't go down. I liked Mecha's ring gear. I popped for Mecha's ring gear during this match. I don't know why, but I saw his ring gear, and I was like, that's pretty freaking cool. When he grabs him by the throat and does that overhead throw was just like, and I almost came out of my chair when I saw that. I was like, holy shit, he did that. And the crowd, that's when the crowd turned and went to Mecha's side of things. The German on Mecha Mercenary by Trevor Lee was good. You know, I gave Trevor Lee, leading up to Absolute Justice, I gave Trevor Lee a lot of shit, because to me, he was the heel in that match. And now afterwards, it's like, okay, we can like Trevor again. He took Mecha's glove off and did the finger pop thing, which was awesome. And then the biggest thing that popped me the most, he went for a La Magistra Cradle on Mecha Mercenary, and he almost got it. I watched that, and I was like, he's not going to get this big son of a gun over, and he didn't, which was good. I'm glad it didn't work. I like the fact that Omega, he was going for the kicks, and Omega looked at him and goes, one more time. Come on, Omega boy. I'm not done yet. And the crowd was like, oh, you know. We got the Black Forest Slam. I wrote here at this point it was a damn good back and forth. Huge clothesline by Mecha. And the inverted cross body is a move that I think I've only seen Trevor Lee do. That I call it an inside-out cross body. There's no other way to describe it for me.
You talking about the finish?
Yeah, the finish.
Somebody told me the name. There's an actual proper name that they don't use on commentary that I had never heard before. So when somebody told me what the finish was the night it happened, I said, what is that? And then they explained it to me, and I went, oh, yeah, the flip slam thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I've always called it the inside out, because it looks like he's turning the guy inside out. I mean, that's just a funny funny name I give to it, and I've heard them allude to it as an inverted cross body or something like that. And it makes me wonder how much of that move is Trevor flipping and how much of it is the opponent having to flip. Because if the opponent's having to do any work at all, kudos to that big son of a gun for getting around like that. That's all I can say.
He does have to do some work to it, because physics just don't work that way unless he jumps and starts to flip at this. And it's a great timing thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing that I've never seen Trevor really blow that. I've never seen his opponent blow their part of it. You know, wrestling, it's a performance art cooperation. Mecha held up his end of the bargain. Everything that you said there just made me realize how diverse the match was, which is important to point out, because, like, I think people think, oh, well, it's Mecha. He's just going to go in there and pound him, and he'll slam him and kick him. And no, Mecha did a lot of different things. This was an interesting Trevor Lee layout that Mecha completely held up his end of the bargain on. And the only other thing that I want to say is, like, a lot of times people talk about stiffness, and I think of like a tight match and tight work where the best segments to this were so fluid, and yet, again, they don't feel dancey. They feel stiff, but it's not just about how hard you can kick a person. It's little things like, oh, you run past me, I run past you, I grab your arm, we reverse, something like that. There's a lot of timing to a Trevor Lee match that you wouldn't think somebody like Mecha could keep up with or keep the footwork of. And he absolutely did.
I mean, to the point where Stutzy, we even got not a high pitched screaming. Oh shit! We got an oh shit, like I can't believe this is happening, kind of thing from Stutzy tonight, which blew my mind. I Trevor after the match here lately, and I think this is, I don't know if they're telling him to do this or if he's doing it on his own and they're just selling it. The fact that every match here for the last 2 or 3 months, at least ever since Absolute Justice, or even before, ever since the match with Chip, it's like, oh my, Trevor after this match is down, he's like, oh my God, like, holy shit, I can't believe I made it through another one. And he even said it, I think, I don't know, one couple episodes of Worldwide ago, he was sitting there going, I don't know how much longer I could do this. I don't know how much, and I don't know if that's they're doing that, or if that's Trevor doing that, in that I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep this up. How many guys are they going to be able to throw at me before I finally lose this damn thing,
Well, I think Grant said on this show, or maybe it wasn't this show and I'm conflating with other things, but that's not something that's an interaction between him and a longtime personal friend usually, which is it. Now tonight Robbie wasn't reffing, but Robbie Walsh usually is kind of like, for lack of a better term, his personal ref for main event matches, and they go pretty far back.
Mm-hmm.
So he's obviously like working it, like he's not breaking kayfabe in the sense of like, oh, on this one he was supposed to move like this and blah blah blah. But it is based in some reality.
It's noticeable, though. Like, that's my thing. It's noticeable to the point where you could pick it out of, and it adds something unintentionally. Now that you say it's just a thing between him and Robbie, which I think it was said last week or the week before that Robbie hasn't been around for a while because he actually got a real radio job in Greenville, so that's why he hasn't been around lately. But the thing is that when Trevor sells that match of, I don't know how much more I could do this, it adds to the title reign, and it adds to him being, champion for, they got a show this Saturday called For the Record at the Mid-Atlantic Sportatorium, and it's for the longest title reign. If Trevor Lee wins Saturday, which I think he's going to, it's pretty much set in stone. I think that he's going to, if you go by the booking, he's going to be the longest reigning champion in history. And that further adds to his character of, he's going to be the guy, there officially. So yeah. I like the after the match dichotomy there. And even if it isn't, even if it is him having a chum moment with Walsh or whoever the ref is or whatever, I hope he continues it to a certain extent, because it's definitely adding to things unintentionally.
Yeah. Agreed.
And that was Worldwide, everybody. Any other thoughts on this on this episode?
I love these episodes that come out of nowhere where I'm like, oh, something interesting might happen, or you go like, oh, there might be a Trevor defense on this one, but the undercard maybe will just be there. And I've been pleasantly surprised this summer. They've had it, I think, at least 4 or 5 episodes where I was like, I thought this would be a building episode for storyline and have some decent matches. And then they blow you away, and this is one of those where I wasn't expecting that much. And I was very pleasantly surprised with what we got. This was a very good episode.
Like I said when we started reviewing it here, I think this is probably one of, if not my favorite episode of Worldwide this year. The Chip Day Trevor Lee match stands up on a pedestal by itself to me. You can't really, I'm like you. It's because I don't, and here's the thing. If I hadn't seen it live, I don't think I would appreciate it as much. If I just was watching it on Worldwide, but the fact is, me, you, we were all there. So it holds a place, and for lack of a better term, it holds a place in my heart now. I can't, we had a huge argument because the reason why this whole after show thing got started was because of that match. I wouldn't be here doing this, I don't think, if I hadn't have forced AC and my former co-host Jeff Edwards, if I hadn't said this is something you got to see, and they're huge New Japan marks, so their reaction is it's not as good as New Japan stuff. But I'm like, this is what they're doing down there. This is what we're doing down here. It's not wrestling, you know? And I hate when people call it wrestling. I hate the term wrestling. It's wrestling, and that's what they're doing down here. And it opened up Jeff Edwards' eyes to the point where he started watching the product with me. But this episode here tonight was probably my favorite episode of the year. John, I want to thank you for coming on and doing this with me tonight. I want to thank you for staying up late. I know that you're not usually up this late, so I really want to thank you for doing this with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to encourage everybody who listens to this, since it's going to be cataloged on YouTube, to look at the I almost said rotating thing, the scroll, and come to the CWF FanCon on CWF Rumble Weekend, October 13th and 14th. There's not much you have to do. We'd love if you contact me or JB. Our Twitter handles are on the scroll. But yeah, just come and hang out. And if you don't want to come to the dinner, otherwise just bring money to see the show or something like that. You know, the dinner's on Friday night. Everything kicks off at 6 p.m. at the Sportatorium. You can have a full night, full catering by Little Italy. Brad Stutz, the lead announcer and booker, is going to be there with his longtime friend and partner in crime, head of production, Grant Sawyer. They're going to do a cool Q&A. It's going to be very intimate and very relaxed, very chill.
I've already started writing down questions for that, by the way.
And then I get, as of this moment, the schedule is always subject to change if something comes up, but we're gonna watch some matches from CWF there, probably on the Spiritron. I got to get my butt moving on getting a small committee together and also doing the internet vote, and we'll just kind of combine everything. We'll find some super complicated mathematical formula that we then won't use to figure out probably the three. Well, hopefully we'll have enough time to watch the three matches, and then we'll go back to the Ramada, which is the official CWF FanCon hotel. There's a Google Doc. Look, if you go to my Twitter handle, that's John Philapavage, JOHN, and then THILAPAVAGE. It is on your screen right now. If you go there, I think I have the Google Doc pin that has all of the information, because I will be here all night telling you all the cool things we have planned. We have Q&As. We have a podcast alley, so Joe will be there to interview some of these people after they get off of, I guess you could call it a dais, but, it's going to be guys talking from a table. The big thing about this is not only community and hanging out and getting to hang out with other wrestling fans, but we are all going to go then to the CWF Rumble, grab a ticket. I think they'll probably be available after this weekend. And the prices are amazing. What do you pay for a ticket, Joe?
I pay $10. I pay $10. I'm going to try to get VIP, but the thing is, I'm sitting here going, if I'm going to Hooters afterwards, do I really need the concessions, the free all-you-can-eat concessions? So, I don't know if...
Yeah, I want to encourage everybody to go crazy and support the company if you're a super fan and you want to be pampered. Get a... we always call it the Cornotto Cup because that's where they debuted it, but the Cornotto Suite, they have, leather chairs that are like recliners, where they just come and take an order and then bring you your food. And you can basically watch the show and watch it on a monitor at the same time. And I think you can even pick up a little bit of commentary from that place. I'm not positive. But the VIP seats, that's what I always grab, front row VIP. If you're lucky enough, you get sat close enough to Cecil and Brad that you get live announcing live commentating while you watch the show. That's just the coolest thing.
The first Rumble that I went to, I sat second row behind, I was right near the commentary table, but I was sat behind where you normally sit at, and in that row where you normally sit at. And it was funny because I had my boy Robert with me, and I'm pretty reserved at shows when I go by myself. I'm not a annoying British fan in that I don't start soccer chants. I don't start stupid stuff. I sit, I watch, I analyze, because that's just how I am. But when I'm with Robert, it's a different story. You know, you're there with your buddy. You're going to cut up. You're going to have fun. And the best thing about that was with the commentary, I'm sitting here looking at Robert going, I think we're going to show up on commentary with our annoying-ass chants. And then I watched the Rumble, and nothing we did showed up. But the crazy part about that was we're sitting behind Katie, Brad's wife, and the shit that we were doing all night was popping her the entire night. So that was the joy I got out of that Rumble. And for those who have never seen a CWF Rumble before, think Royal Rumble, but most of the time it can be better. It's amazing. The fact that they have, and they're going to bring together 30 guys. And this is why Grant and Brad are probably not going to show up Saturday, because you're doing this Rumble weekend. And I think I even asked Brad about this when I had him on my show about a year and a half ago. The thought process into booking a Rumble-style match like that, it fries my brain just thinking about having to even try it, you know? So I encourage everybody to come out. I'm assuming they're going to get to meet you, shake your hand, tell you thank you, whatever the case may be. John's an awesome guy, so feel free to say hello to him as well. And I want to tell people who are doing the Radio Row thing, and I don't know how you guys are having this set up, but of course, come say hello to me. If y'all guys, if you guys want to talk wrestling with me or talk CWF with me, I'm happy to do it. The interesting thing I'm worried about, or not worried about, but I'm interested in going to the tape watching party at the Ramada afterwards because I've never taken part of anything like that. So that's going to be an interesting experience for me. I don't know how late into the night I'll stay, but I'm debating on whether or not getting a hotel room, because it's like I live 45 minutes away. So if I go late night to you guys with this damn tape watching party, I got to drive 45 minutes up the road to Danville, and then I got to be right back at the Sportatorium by 10 a.m. So I don't know whether I'm going to get
my whole weekend's going to be very rough.
Oh man,
because
you're going to be a zombie by the end of it.
I'm probably going to be up until 4 a.m. on Friday night and Saturday, and I know that I got to be up by 7:30 because I'll have to eat something, but then get to the venue to make sure everything's prepped and everybody's good. Because what the plan is to have doors open at 10, so
right.
You got to have everything ready by like 9:50 at the latest, probably 9:45.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and close this out for tonight. Stay on the line with me because I do have some things about FanCon that I wanted to ask you about. Everybody hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Follow us here on Twitter. You can follow John on Twitter. The Twitter handles are on your screen. We're also on Twitch, streaming tonight at twitchtv.1650pwam. The name on that is going to change as soon as Twitch allows me to do so. So follow us on there. We do a lot more on this channel besides wrestling. We have a video game Let's Plays as well as movie stuff and TV and film. We cover it all. That's why we call it From Pillar to Post, because we take you from pillar to post and everywhere in between. I want to thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you at the Sportatorium.